Well, the death toll then here in France is increasingly becoming a political issue, with parties of both the left and the right criticising the government for what they say is a lack of preparedness for the heat wave. Let's talk about this then with Marc Perelman, our French politics editor, who is with me. As I say then, Marc, the government's come under criticism. Just tell us a bit about what that criticism is and how the government has been responding.
The criticism is about not being prepared for this, despite all the warnings for years. Climate experts, even government ministers have said we need to be prepared, not just in theory, but in practical terms, in terms of adapting to climate change. And the French vividly remember in 2003, there was a heat wave, 15,000 people die, 15. But it's a lot, especially elderly people. And at the time, there was the sense that, we didn't really know, and this was an exceptional phenomenon. Since then, there have been piles of reports of warnings that this was about to happen. And so this is why there is criticism that the government didn't see it coming despite all the warnings. The government is saying, well, obviously, many things have changed since 2003. We've had emergency plans for hospitals, for schools, and everything, but it wasn't enough. And to the point that the prime minister had to, in a hurry, order 30,000 AC units for hospitals just a couple of days ago, when it was already probably too late, because by the time you order them and they arrive, the heat wave is gone. So the government is in a difficult situation, especially because the president himself said, we cannot prepare for such thing. He said this during a previous heat wave in 2022. Now he's saying that, we've done a lot. France has done a lot, much better than European countries. The problem is that they're forced to call emergency meetings after emergency meetings. The prime minister is going to have one this late afternoon. Why? Because there's this threat that there could be a new heat wave and that the hospitals could again find themselves in the situation they're finding themselves in these days, because yes, the heat wave might be gone in everyday life, but in hospitals, they're continuing to see people arriving in droves, and that's what's worrying. But obviously, France finds in a situation where there's a political instability, that there's a belt tightening because of the budgetary situation, and clearly the environment has not been a priority. There have been major cuts in some of the funds that were set for fighting climate change, adapting to climate change. They've been cut because we need to cut, and there's a debate saying why should we spend more on defense and less on fighting climate change, or at least adapting to climate change. This is why the government is in a difficult situation.
Well, look, you say this hasn't been a political priority in the last few months. Do you think that's going to change in the months ahead? Are we going to see this being the issue that people are focusing on, because we are less than a year out now from the presidential election?
Well, that's probably something those who do care about climate change and climate adaptation are hoping. The problem is, once the heat wave is gone, there's going to be something else. There's going to be a budget discussion in the fall. And the candidates, yes, they're saying, yes, we need to deal with this. But the main debate here has been about air conditioning. Should we install air conditioning? The polls are showing that, yes, 80% of the French, after this scorching heat wave, are saying, yes, we're in favor because we want to have a normal life. But it's not obviously all the debate. And the candidates have been, except for the Greens, who are saying, well, we've been saying this for years. The others have said, well, yes, we need to think about this. But no one is going to say, I'm going to make it my top priority. Obviously, there are other issues. There's security, there's purchasing power, there's the price of gas, and so on. So it's difficult to see climate change and climate adaptation as being front and center in the next presidential campaign. Yes, the Greens will push it. The left will probably try to push it less maybe than the Greens, but for the traditional right, the conservatives, and especially the National Rally, this has never been their priority. And for now, the National Rally is clearly ahead in the polls. Let's see if they say something about this, but I doubt.